Well, good morning, friends. I think we'll start. Good to have you online and in my office. I thought we'd do things a little bit differently outside rather than having it outside, just because less wind and also less distractions. Morning, Nancy, and just quite nice. Sorry, Anne, no birds to listen to this morning, but you get my beautiful tones, my somber tones to listen to this morning. Good. Friends, just some notices. Thank you to Richard for playing on Friday. And morning, Tom. And thank you to all those who participated in the pub quiz. We're really grateful for all that you did. It was great fun. Again, I think my pub quiz setting skills were a bit beyond most people, not because I'm clever, but because the internet's more clever than I am. So I'm going to be asking somebody else, morning Christine, to be setting up the quiz for 2 weeks' time. So we'll have another quiz in 2 weeks' time. And thank you to all of that, or for all of those who participated. It was good fun. Just a couple of other announcements is if you would like to give financially to the church, that'd be lovely. I know there are many people that give, and it's just great. We're so grateful for those who give week in and week out. So if you would like to give, we have a fundraising account on Facebook, but you could also speak to Ewan Fraser or myself about getting the church bank details, and by putting in moving from the free will envelopes to a standing order. That would be really helpful. If you want to also look at the newsletter, it's in one of the posts down below on the church Facebook page, but it's also on the church website. It's in a couple of places. Morning, Marina. And so if you're wanting the church newsletter, let us know. Richard, good to hear from you too. And I'm sorry that you missed the birds, but if you open your window, I'm pretty sure it'll sound like there's birds inside as well. And so if you want the newsletter, it's been really well received. There's been a lot of interest in what people have been writing in the newsletter, so go get it on the church website or in the Facebook account. It's just a couple of posts below. Last is, we as a church really pride ourselves in pastoral care, and we try really hard. And so if you need any pastoral care at this time, please phone the Mans. I am phoning around and I am trying to get to everybody in the congregation, but you can imagine with over 350 people trying to get hold of everyone and trying to juggle everything can be a bit daunting. So if you need pastoral care, please phone the Mans or phone Anne Stewart. As well as it's a community initiative. We all have to look after each other. So if you hear of someone who needs anything, please give them a call. Look out for each other. I think that this is that time where we need to work together. So if you can. Hi, Morag. Good to see you. Good. So those are the announcements I have for today. Today's reading comes from John 10. And it's one of these really fascinating readings, especially because the last bit of this reading is quite well known. And so this is the reading, and it goes like this. John 10 says, "I'm telling you the solemn truth," said Jesus. "Anyone who doesn't come into the sheepfold by the gate, but gets in by some other way, is a thief and a brigand, or a thief and a robber. But the one who comes in through the gate is the sheep's own shepherd. The doorkeeper will open up for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all that belong to him, he goes ahead of them. The sheep follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger. Instead, they will run away from him because they don't know the stranger's voice." Jesus spoke this parable to them, but they didn't understand what he was saying to them. So he spoke to them again. I'm telling you the solemn truth. He said, I am the gate of the sheep. All the people who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate. If anyone comes in by me, they will be safe and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I came so that you or that they can have life, yes, and have it full to overflowing. Some translations translate that last, but it's, I have come to give you life and life abundantly. When you think of success or you think of what the perfect life is, what comes to mind? If you could have given your 10-year-old self a list of things that you wanted to become, what would success have looked like? I remember thinking when I was quite young that success looked like being financially stable, having all the money I needed whenever I needed it, and I could go out and buy whatever I wanted. It was finding a good job, and not just finding a good job, a job that I loved doing. That was success. I didn't want to do the meager jobs. I wanted to be successful so that other people did those menial jobs. I wanted a house, a lovely house, a beautiful car. Typically one when I drove past, the people would be like, there goes someone of style and of class and of character. And so there were a couple of things. And the other one is that being successful looked a lot like marriage. If you had a partner, well, then you were successful. If you were happily married, you were successful. If you had 2.4 children, then you were successful. And so success from a young age was instilled into me. And I don't know what your dreams were or what success looked for 10-year-old you. In current culture, we're sold a dream as well. And I often think that the immigration conversation that we're having at the moment in the UK and in America is actually what I like to call a PR dream gone right. It's a PR done really well. For years and years and years, the English or the British came around and said, the best thing you can be in the world is British. And so they exported being British all over the world. If you go to India, the best thing to be is to be British. And if you went and you look in America, the best thing to be is to live the American dream. That's it. If you want anything in life, you want the American dream. That is success. And we might even say, if we were paraphrasing, that is what life looked if it was abundant. Life abundantly or overflowing is that you would be British or you'd be living the American dream. And it's a PR exercise gone right because people decided, hey, we want a slice of that pie. And so they came. And now we deal with that immigration story. So success has often looked different things to different people, but as a whole, it's been sold as a dream, the American dream. Even the British Empire was a bit of a dream. But then something like Corona or COVID-19 comes by and you start to question things, don't you? It starts to give you a new framework to look at life and what's important, what matters. And one of the things that I think people are asking, is this really something I want to give my life to? Is the way I've been living something that I want to give my hopes, my dreams, my time, my energy to? And so there's a lot of rediscovering and introspection about what it means to be successful or what it means to have a good life at the moment. And I think in today's reading, I think Jesus is doing the same thing. I think Jesus is calling people to have a bit of introspection. And he's using this beautiful imagery of sheep and shepherds. But what I think he's doing, and he's doing it so cleverly, is he's talking about the inner life, the inner ways that we think about ourselves and what matters and what doesn't matter. And so in this story, you have two voices. You've got this one voice that's and it comes with the shepherd or the stranger or the thief, and it comes to destroy and to steal. So you've got this one voice on one side, and then Jesus talks about another voice, and he says, I am that good voice. And this voice gives life, and it gives love, and it gives abundance to things. And these two voices are in conversation with each other. And if we're really honest about it, we have those two voices in our own life, don't we? We have those voices in our heads that steal our time. They steal our resources. They steal our energy. And when those negative thoughts come in, it's like a pinball game in your head, that this negative thought bounces around within your head, and it bounces and bounces and bounces, and it's just frantic as this ball pops around within you. And it's almost as if when this negative thought hits you or comes into your head, it comes in through another door. It comes in through this other door, and it really breaks you. It steals from you. It steals vitality and life from you, doesn't it? You know those voices that we're taught or that we hear in our head where we're told we're not beautiful enough, or we're not successful enough, or we're not man enough or woman enough. We don't perform to those kind of stereotypes of what a good man is or a good woman. You know, the voice inside of you that says, well, you're not smart enough. The amount of people who've told me that a teacher said to them or a parent said to them they weren't smart enough. Or someone who was told, if only you lost a couple more kilograms, a couple more pounds, you'd look beautiful. You ever had that voice running through your head? And the one that I get all the time, is when somebody's told that they're not worthy enough. You're not worthy enough to be loved. You're not worthy enough to be accepted. That voice, that little ball of negativity that gets into our head and then pings around. So we have that voice in our head, don't we? Consistently, we have that voice. And in the other voice, we have a voice that gives life. We've got this other voice that brings confidence and says, yeah, I can push through this. I can do this. I've got this. You know, and there's times where that voice just gives life wherever it goes. Anyone who knows how good a positive voice is will understand this kind of analogy. If you've been told that you're unlovable and that you have no value, and you find a partner or someone who comes in and just keeps reiterating how loved and how valuable you are, it changes you. It changes you. It changes the way you live. So you have these two conflicting voices in your head. You've got the negative voice that goes around like a pinball and just it strikes you, and you've got this, you've got the positive voice as well that lifts you up and makes you feel like you can accomplish anything. And these voices constantly play in our head. And friends, what I've discovered is that these voices drive us. These are the voices that will determine the actions we have and how we live. And so if it's a negative voice, it'll drive us into a negative way. It will seek to be fulfilled. And if it's a positive voice, well, then that will also drive our actions. And the question I think Jesus asks in between the lines, in between the words, is which one's more life-giving? Which voice, the negative voice or the positive voice, is the one that's going to sustain you for the longest? excuse me, which is the one, which voice is going to give you life? And if you're anything like me, you'll know that the voice, we all want that kind of voice, that we want to follow the voice of life. We want to follow these things. We want to do the right things. But often we choose the wrong ones. We choose the negative. We go into the line of, or we follow the voice that doesn't give us life. And Paul wrote about this, where he says, I know, and I'm going to paraphrase this. He says, the things I know that bring destruction in my life, I follow. And the things that I know bring life, I choose not to follow. And so we get caught into these voices in our heads. Yesterday, I was watching a CrossFit video. And for anyone who doesn't know what CrossFit is, it's a strength or a test on the ultimate way of fitness. So it's grueling fitness. And this competition takes 40 of the best men and women and puts them against each other. And in this one event, just before the event, they put these CrossFit athletes before the camera, and they said, tell me, why do you do this? What is it about CrossFit that makes you want to explore and to push yourself? And the majority of people answered this. They said, I want my parents, when I look up at them at the end of it, to be proud of me. I want to hear words of affirmation at the end of this. And right after that, they took them to this extreme event of running and just excruciating, and people were passing out. They were pushing themselves so hard in the attempt to finish this challenge of fitness that people were passing out midway through. They were hitting the wall and hitting the wall. Their body was telling them to stop, and yet they kept on going because they wanted the affirmation at the end. They wanted to be the fittest person alive. They wanted their parent to look down on them and say, I value you. They wanted the crowds of people to cheer them on and say, you matter. It's amazing what we'll do for affirmation, isn't it? It's amazing the way that we will live when we feel that something needs to drive us. And in this passage, Jesus says that I've come to give you life, and life abundantly, or life that overflows. I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't know how true that is. And not because I doubt Jesus, but because I doubt the context that I find myself in. I doubt, with coronavirus going around, like it's difficult. It doesn't feel like life abundant. It doesn't feel like we're living our best life when I'm stuck indoors all the time. That doesn't feel like life abundant. And sometimes it can often feel like Jesus is absent when we talk about things like this. That Jesus is absent from the places of hurt and pain. And so it's difficult to understand when Jesus says, I've come to give you life and life abundant. And on top of that, I sometimes doubt it because for many years, the church has sown the narrative of negativity into people, and it still does. Some traditions in the church still tell people how bad they are, that you're not good enough, that the only way you'll be good enough is if you follow X, Y, and Z. And so Jesus comes, and I think this is what Jesus is talking about. I think when we look at it like that, I think Jesus is talking about something deeper. I think Jesus is talking about life in all its entirety, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think Jesus is saying, in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all the world has to throw at us and all the negativity and all the brutality of life, I have come that you might have a life that's abundant. And so it reminds me a little bit of Psalm 23, that and my cup overflows. My cup overflows. Jesus has come to help us in the midst of walking in the shadow of death, in walking in difficult places, that we might have a life that overflows. Recently, I came across somebody speaking about grace. And they said this, and it really just struck a heartstring. They said, grace is the special love Grace is the special love that frees us from the fear to get real about who we are. Let me repeat that. Grace is the special love that frees us from the fear to get real about who we really are. We have a problem, I think, is that we struggle to face reality. If Jesus is going to give us life, it has to be in all its reality. So one of the things I think we struggle with is to deal with the reality of who we are. We struggle to deal with the fact that we've been hurt. We struggle to deal with the fact that things haven't gone the way we wanted. We struggle to deal with the fact that we're not the people we think we are. We struggle. And so what we do is we place this game of denial. We blame other people. That you're the problem, not me. We blame them for the things that we do wrong. It's you. You're the person. We project onto them. We project things and we say there's that Jesus talks about the splinter in their eyes. We look at their splinter, but there's a log in our own eye. And we attack them. We attack the life that they have. And we bury the life as much as we can. Because we're so scared of actually dealing with the reality that's in front of us. And so this is, I think, what happens in life is that we have a fear about dealing about who we really are. We have a fear of dealing with our own life. And so we live at odds. We live at odds. And even worse than that, we live at odds with the truth that we are actually at odds with ourselves. And the only way that we can deal with that fear or that lack of truth is to expose it to truth. And the only way we overcome fear is through love, through grace, through that special love that frees us from the fear to get real about who we are. That we are held by God as we go through the difficult moments. That God opens our eyes to who we really are. That is grace. That we are worthy. That we are loved. Yes, we have serious issues that we need to work through, but at the heart of it, we are valued. For many years, Christians have told each other, or the church has told people, that Jesus makes us something else. That following Jesus is about being something else. And I would rather say that I don't believe that. I think that when we follow Jesus and we follow God, and if we do religion properly, it doesn't make us less of ourselves. It makes us more. It makes us who we were created to be. So I think that there are three things that have helped me deal with these voices in my head. So whether we go with the negative or the positive, and at the same time acknowledging who I am, the good, the bad, the ugly, warts and all. And so I want to speak of three things. And I hope these three things can really help. And the first thing that I've discovered that really helps when we're dealing is this is the first one, is to acknowledge what stories you're telling yourself. To just acknowledge that. To tell the truth about the story that you're telling yourself. And let me tell you, contrary to what the movies tell you, you can handle the truth. You can handle the truth. And then also, what are the stories that I think that other people are telling about me? This is all part of the first one. People have said stories about you from when you were a young age. Who you become, what you'd look like, how your family behaved, all of that. Those are stories. But are they true? Am I still holding on to those stories? So what I've found really helpful when it comes to acknowledging the stories that are told within me and about me is to look at myself and to look at my reactions to things. So when I get angry, the question is not to just get angry and walk away from it. It's saying, but why has that made me angry? What about that moment has caused this kind of anger to bubble up? Or why do I feel guilty? Or why do I feel guilty when I look after myself or do something I enjoy? Why do I do this action? One of my big things is that for many years we've been told that sin is something we need to just get rid of as quick as possible. Christians are bad. I mean, Christians, we pray for forgiveness and it's gone. But I'm slowly discovering that there's a blessing in our sin. And sin, by what I mean is by the separations we create. If we lie, why are we lying? What is it about us that needs to amplify the story, to change the story? What is that lie trying to achieve? If you find yourself caught in a relationship that is destructive and you go and do things that out later in that, like do you own that story? I mean, like if you're caught, people who have affairs often have an inability to deal with the reality that's in front of them. That's they walk away from it. And so having sin is the things that separate us are trying to tell us something about who we are. The second thing I found very helpful is to ask, are the voices that are within me helpful? Are the voices within me helpful? Are they life-giving? Or are they destructive? It's just ask the question, like, is the story that I'm telling myself actually that well? Is it a good story or is it a bad story? Is it life-giving or is it not life-giving? And if it is not life-giving, let me ask you this. If it is not life-giving, is it of God? Is it of God? And if it's not of God, my sheep, they hear my voice and they follow it. If the story we tell ourselves is not giving you life, then maybe it's time to walk away from that story. Maybe it's time to tell another story. Maybe it's time to start listening to a new story, or to listening to the one who is telling the story. So that's the second one. The first one is acknowledge the stories that you're telling. Number 2 is to ask whether these stories are helpful. And the third one is to follow the road to discover new life and to discover who you are. Fishy music, sung in all the schools around Scotland, sing a song that says, I'm the only I, and you're the only you. We're the only we in history. And it's true, you are the only you. You are the only person that has ever existed as you. Scientists tell us if you take two children, identical DNA, and you put them even in the same family, they'll grow up differently. Their life experiences will be different. People have different, we grow up in different ways. So there's only one of you. And there's only one story. There's only one of your experience. And what I'm discovering is that only you can tell the story about yourself. And what I mean by that is that God can support us and offer us grace. The people around us can give us love and hope and affection. But only you are the person who can unlock the doors to who you truly are. Only you can do that. There's that old saying, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. You can love people, and people can love you, but only you can make yourself get real about who you are. And so once we unlock this door of who we really are, I think this is what Jesus is talking about. You'll have life in abundance. When you discover who you truly are, and not what people tell you you should be, and you live from that place, and you live from that place without fear or condemnation, but you live in all the vitality of being who you are, you have life abundant. And not even death can take that away from you. No one can take away that abundant life from you. And that's why Jesus says, I've come to give you life and life in all its fullness, because I've given you the keys to unlock who you are. And so that is this beautiful place. And when we live from that place of abundance, when we live from the place where we know that shepherd's voice of wholeness and life, no one's getting through into our sheep pen. Only the good comes out. Friends, this is not an easy journey. My experience has told me, and my personal experience has told me, that this is a long journey. It's not something we automatically just get through today. You can't click your fingers and, hey, I'm living from my authentic self. Great. I've acknowledged my story. I've chosen to live with with the helpful voices, and I've chosen to walk the path of discovering who I am. That's great. You can decide all those things. But it takes ages to work this out. And it's like a muscle. You've got to keep exercising it to get it strong. It doesn't just come like that. It takes years. If someone has plowed negativity into you for years, if someone told you that you're not worthy enough for years, it takes years for that to work itself out. It takes years to discover the life that is on the other side of that. But it's that slow move. It's that slow burn. And the best way for me to think about it is like you plant a seed of goodness. And when you plant a seed of goodness, or any seed for that matter, you don't plant it, water it, and then a flower shoots out. You plant it, and you wait, and slowly but surely life starts to come from the soil. And slowly it rises up. And only when the time is right does it open up. It takes time. And that's almost what this life and life abundance, it's not a quick fix. And that's why it's also difficult. It's a slow releasing. And so if we're going to live a life of abundance, it's a journey. and one that we'll spend our whole lives trying to work out. I'm going to end with a parable, and it's a parable from it's a Buddhist parable, and I think it speaks of a lovely truth. And there was once a lady who wanted to know who she was. So she went around the village going, "Who am I? Who am I?" And she went to one villager to the next. Then eventually the villager said, "We cannot tell you who you are. Go up the mountain. And as you go up the mountain, you will find a yogi." So she goes up the mountain, and she gets up and climbs over these rocks. She gets to the top of she gets to this mountain, section of the mountain where the yogi's sitting, and she goes, "Who am I?" And the yogi goes, "Oh, that's a very good question. But it's above my pay grade. I can't help you. You're going to have to climb some more. But I mean, there's someone a little higher up the mountain, and perhaps they will get you." And so she climbs up, and she gets to the next level, and she screams out, "Who am I?" And the mystic says, "Yes, I wish I could help you, but that's even above my pay grade. You're going to have to go up the mountain some more, and maybe someone at the top can help you." She gets to the top of the mountain, and she screams at the saint, "Who am I?" And the saint turns and says, "Who's asking?" Friends, as you ask the question, "Who am I?" who's asking? As you look for life abundantly, who's asking? And I pray that as we go as a congregation, as a community, that we'll ask those questions, that we'll face the hard truths about ourselves, and that we might have life, and life abundant. So may God hold you. May God protect you. May you discover some of the stories that you tell yourself that aren't true. May you hold onto new stories of hope, that they may give you life and life abundant. And may God hold you in the palm of God's hand, because you really matter. God bless. Keep safe.